Brian Harris with the Independent Black Voters. Our vote is not free. We're continuing our series of Know Your Candidates. We're creeping up to the primaries, folks. It's very important that we know our candidates and we go out and vote. I was talking and stated yesterday, I said 200,000 people voted, but I found out I'm corrected. Only 100,000 people voted in the last primary 2 years ago. There's 1 million people that are registered. That means that less than 10% voted, and a good percentage of those folks did not even vote for the judicial candidates. What does that mean? It is a perfect opportunity for us to understand our power. It's a perfect opportunity for us to vote in candidates that will push agenda of economic and social equality. So today here, I'm proud to have Erika Ballou, who is here and running as a candidate. I'd like to introduce her and let her tell us a little bit about herself, about the seat that she is running. How you doing today, Erika?
Hi, how are you? I'm fine. So my name is Erika Ballou. I'm a candidate for District Court Department 24. It's an open seat. There is no incumbent. There are 5 people running. 2 of us are criminal defense attorneys. One's a district attorney, so a prosecutor who puts people in prison. And the other 2, I assume, are civil attorneys. I've been a criminal defense attorney in the Clark County Public Defender's Office since 2005. Prior to that, I spent about a year, a little bit more than a year, in the Federal Public Defender's Office here in Nevada. And for the year prior to that, I was a law clerk in the Clark County District Attorney's Office. I've been in Nevada since I graduated from law school in 2003. I went to law school at Tulane in New Orleans. I'm from California. Anything else you think you want people to know?
Well, that's a good start. We'll know more about you in a minute because I knew a few things. We'll talk about them a little later. Now, I say to people, this is not the Review Journal. This is the Independent Black Voters, and we keep it real, and we talk about issues directly pertaining to the Black community. They may involve everybody, but there are certain issues that the Black community has to deal with. Disproportionately, we're incarcerated. Disproportionately, we have a higher sentencing. Disproportionately, we find that the DAs pile on the charges to even force a lot of innocent folks to take deals. And that's why it's so important for us to have the right people as judges. We need and want a level playing field. So with saying that, tell me what you think about those statements and tell me where you think there are a need for improvement in our judicial system.
Well, I agree with everything you've said. That's one of the reasons I'm a public defender. I could have made a lot more money coming out of law school doing something else. But I grew up poor. I grew up with seeing friends and family going to prison and you know, being caught up in the justice system, and I didn't want to see it happen anymore, and I became a public defender for that. Actually, one of the reasons that I started out in the district attorney's office was because I thought I would be able to do more good with the discretion that DAs are given with charging and things like that. The DA who hired me from law school before I started became a judge, so I never worked under him, and he seemed to have had the same philosophy about it that I did, and was giving people leniency and allowing them to come up with fairer solutions. Then by the time I started as a law clerk there, it was a different district attorney with a whole different philosophy, and that was not where it went. And so I mean, I went to law school to become a public defender. That was my entire reason, but I thought that I could have done more good. And I think in some places you can. I mean, San Francisco just recently elected a public defender as their district attorney. And he is making sweeping changes and is doing some good things in the DA's office where they have more discretion. But if you don't have the people who want to do that at the top, then you're never going to get that. And that's not a place for people who want to see change be.
Absolutely. And that's why we created the Independent Black Voters, because I will say, if you are a social advocate, if you are a person who is pushing for social justice and you're not being informed on who the judges are, not being informed who's running for district attorney, not being aware of who the police are and who is running the police force, then you're not serious about social justice. We have a great opportunity, and I was talking earlier on the fact that the primary is in a situation where very few people actually vote on the percentage of people that are registered to vote. If Black folks were able to be educated and were able to decide who the best candidates are, they can win in the primary, because all they have to do is win 50% plus one vote. And so my campaign has been, I am my brother's keeper. And if you are your brother's keeper, you may have never set foot. Luckily, I have not on the criminal side set foot in the criminal courts or anything like that. But I don't know a Black man who hasn't at least come close to from just the reason of being Black. So you should be concerned. We should be the ones looking to demand that a system become colorblind. We should be looking to demand that a system be balanced, and we can't do that without people like yourselves. So I'm gonna bring up a video clip that I saw of you, because this is the first time. Well, we talked on the phone a little bit, but the first time I saw you was basically on a news clip, because you were wearing a Black Lives Matter pin, and the judge there wouldn't allow you to wear it, yet he would allow everybody else to wear whatever pins they did. Say it was Blue Lives Matter or anything else, it was okay. But as usual, there was something about Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, there were a couple of attorneys in town who had seen that that an attorney, I think it was in Ohio, had gotten in trouble for wearing a Black Lives Matter. And so they asked a few different people, just a couple of us, if we'd be willing to wear a Black Lives Matter pin. And I was like, absolutely. I think that Black Lives Matter, and people need to understand this is not something political. This is not something against police. This is saying that my life should matter as much as somebody who
Absolutely
doesn't look like me. And so I heard from a judge friend of mine that the police union was objecting to my wearing it every day in court. And so I sort of knew something was coming. I didn't know when or where, but I knew that there were things that were going to go down. So I walked into that particular judge's courtroom, and as soon as I walked in, his marshal took me back outside and was like, "You're going to not be allowed to go in if you don't take your pin off." And I was like, well, then I'm not going in, and this sentencing is not going forward. So I walked right back out, and I called the head of the public defender's office at the time, and I told him, I was like, look, I'm not going in. You can send somebody else who doesn't know this client, who doesn't know this case, but I am not going in that courtroom. He's like, nope, you shouldn't. Come back. We'll figure out what we're going to do. And so come to find out that he did have the right to tell me what I could do in his courtroom, since it was his courtroom. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, there were quite a number of public defenders, criminal defense attorneys, got hundreds more of the Black Lives Matter pins, went into his courtroom with everybody wearing that. And then the head of the office was like, well, we understand, so we're going to have to take it off. And we did. Okay. But it was the same summer that The guy in Louisiana, I think his name was Alton Sterling, had been killed by the police for playing music too loud. The guy in, I think it was like St. Paul, Minneapolis, had been shot in his car because he tried to tell them that he had his gun that he was
Yes.
legally allowed to have, was murdered by the police. That same summer, I was actually going to dinner with a friend at downtown Summerlin, and I got pulled over because I was speeding, because that's how I drive.
Yeah.
And I looked down, I handed the cop, my registration, my license, and all the other stuff. Looked down to text my friend, and I was like, Laura, I'm going to be a little bit late. I got pulled over for speeding, blah, blah, blah. I look up, I'm right there on like Sahara and the 215. There were 4 NHP cars behind me for speeding. Like,
Wow.
I am a middle-aged, middle-class Black woman driving like a Toyota Corolla. Like, what on earth do you need 4 cop cars for me for?
Call intimidation.
Right. I was terrified. Like, I legitimately was like, I'm going to get killed out here. And so I texted my friend. I was like, look, if something happens, no, this is what it was. And she was like, we already have our table, but we're leaving it. We're coming over. We can't do anything, but we can watch, and we're white. And so, that'll hopefully protect you. And the fact that she had to say, we can, like, our whiteness will be a shield for you. I mean, at least she understood it, and at least she was willing to do it. But the fact that whiteness can be a shield, that I have to have a shield just for a speeding violation, like, is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, it's, Black lives should matter. They don't necessarily, but I want that to be different.
Absolutely.
I want this to be better.
And not only should Black lives matter, that's a perfect example of one of the problems that we have such a high incarceration of folks who look like us in jail. If you are systematically pulled over more than any other group, and you are systematically given tickets more than any other group, and you fundamentally don't even have the economics to pay for those excessive costs, it's really been a poverty tax and a Black tax, and it fills up the judges, fills up the jails. I was just talking to another young man, and they were talking about during the coronavirus, they let out 30% of the people because the majority of them who were in there were for some type of a vehicle speeding, something dealing with driving. And obviously, if you're driving while Black, you know that a significant amount of them were people who look like me. And I appreciate you talking in your candor here, because as I said, this is the Independent Black Voters, and our goal is to talk openly and honestly, not just with yourself, but every candidate, regardless of their color, on what their beliefs are, because the truth of the matter is, this is a system that needs new blood. It needs people like yourself. It needs people who don't look like you, but have the same belief in social justice and equal opportunity, equal justice under the law. Tell me a little bit more what your, should you win this spot, what will be the basis, or what will you focus on, or what will be the assignments that will come into your judgeship?
Right now, that is an entirely civil department. I believe that it would likely be changed if any of the 3 of us who do criminal work are elected, but that's up to the chief judge. So if it's entirely civil, I would have a whole lot of things I'd need to learn, because I haven't done anything civil ever in my career, and I haven't, concentrated on it since law school. I would hope that if I were the person who was elected, that the judge would change it to at least half criminal and half civil, because that's where my passion lies, is in criminal. I want it to be a fair system. I want it to understand that people are humans and make mistakes. I want the system to understand that not everybody's had the same privileges in their lives, and that we need to take all of that into account when sentencing or, you know, anything to another human being. We have to realize that these people are humans.
Yes.
These people are not just clients. They're not just files on our desk. They're not criminals. They're not, I mean, that's one of the first things is people are dehumanized when you call them criminals or felons or anything like that. People are desensitized to hearing about other people as those things. And language matters. And so you have to understand these are people and you have to treat them like that. And I mean, everybody can't be given an opportunity at probation. There are things that are bad enough that someone needs to go to prison, but not everyone needs to go to prison. So.
Yes, I agree. And let's face it, there is a direct correlation between poverty and a lot of issues that we're dealing here. Almost everything is a direct correlation to poverty. If we can figure out some ways to break that cycle, I believe that we would have less people in prison or jail. I believe that if we, like you said, if you have a judge that has lived the life of going through the cycle of poverty, who's seen how hard it is, because some people who have a silver spoon believe, oh, just lift yourself up with your bootstraps, but they don't realize many of these people don't have a bootstrap to lift themselves up with.
Right.
So I like the fact that you have the life experiences to be a balanced judge. We all want, Black people always want law and order. Unfortunately, we want law and order to the point we don't understand sometimes. I want social justice. I want laws that are fair and equal to everybody, but they cannot be socially unjust and think that I will agree with them. So I like the fact that we've got so many people, so many attorneys that are actually coming on the side that you are, that were you were I'm forgetting the name. You came out of, huh?
I'm a public defender.
Public defender, yes. I am actually ecstatic on the amount of public defenders that are running. Far too many times, the people running are law and order people. Lock them up, throw away the key, I'm tough on crime. Not realizing that what we want is people who are looking for safety in our communities, but not to lock up our communities. And I think having people like yourselves in here who have life experiences can help maybe change that that belief. So tell me, coming in, and obviously if you come into the side where it's more of civil, you've got to do a lot of catching up and do. If you are coming in and say you're giving some criminal, which is your area, what do you think are the quickest areas of improvement to actually make that a better place?
I think a lot of what the public defenders have been doing, the litigation about like the incarceration, pretrial incarceration and things like that, is going to be a lot. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be, because people don't need to be warehoused when they haven't even been convicted of a crime. Almost everybody in CCDC is awaiting a trial. CCDC is the Clark County Detention Center. They're awaiting a trial. There's not that many of them who are being sentenced on these misdemeanors, on these gross misdemeanors. Most of those people are awaiting trial. And if they were able to be out while they were waiting for trial, able to be out, still working, still taking care of their families, still in the community doing good things, then it would be a big deal. And There's some public defenders who had been working on that for a long time. One of the people who's actually running for judge, Christy Craig, but she doesn't have a primary, but she did a lot of the legwork on that. And so a lot of it is changing. So now in Las Vegas, they've got an initial arraignment court where people are supposed to be coming before a court, and they're supposed to be not necessarily having money bail, where they're supposed to be looking at other alternatives, where they're going to be looking at whether or not someone can have an ankle monitor, whether or not somebody can come in and do a hand scan a couple times a week to show, that they're, checking in like they're supposed to, but they're not, because what you're supposed to be doing prior to trial is that they're supposed to be making sure that you're not a danger to the community, and that you're going to show up for court. And you don't necessarily have to be in jail to do those things.
Absolutely.
So I think that that's a big deal. And I think that is one of the things that district court judges would need to look at more, because a lot of times when you go in justice court and they make a bail, nobody's willing to look at that again, even if there are changed circumstances.
Absolutely. I agree with you, because the truth of the matter is we have a debtor's prison. If you go to court and you don't have money, you are literally in debtor's prison until you are convicted. And that's not right, because what it tends to do is it gives innocent people, it forces them to take guilty pleas. I would assume you can walk in and say, hey, you've been in here for X amount of time. If you take this guilty plea, it'll be time served and you're out the door. Well, if a person is innocent, they may still say, well, I need to take this because I just need to get out. So I
had a client who, and this was so long ago, I'm surprised I can still remember all of the details, but it was a domestic violence case. And the facts were that the client had a pretty bad record, but none of it was related to violence against a spouse or a significant other. It was some like burglaries and things like that, residential burglaries and burglaries of establishments and things like that. His record was bad, but we come in and the facts of the case were that the client was alleged to have broken his significant other's hand. She said that he tried to punch her and she put her hand in front of her face and stopped him, and that's how her hand broke. Mm-hmm. His story was that she tried to punch him, he ducked, she hit the wall. That made way more sense. While he was waiting for trial all this time, and the DA knew that was an illogical story that the alleged victim told, but her whole thing was, well, he's not out there burglarizing somebody. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. This is about whether or not he did what you're accusing him of in this case. And so finally, we get on the eve of trial. They have what's called a calendar call about a week before trial for them to see if all the parties are ready. So he's been in custody now for 90 days waiting for his trial, or something like 90 days. It wasn't quite 90 days, but he's been in custody probably like 75 days. And at the calendar call, the district attorney for the first time comes and says he can have a gross misdemeanor with 90 days and he's got all this credit, so he's probably going to get out, because she knew she was going to lose that trial. She just wanted to keep him in custody, and that's not fair. He took it because he wanted to get out.
And basically, you're right, and that's exactly what happens. This is hey, Jason, say hi to Erika.
Hi, Erika.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm kind of late. Had to do some phone calls. Went a little bit longer than expected, but I'm here.
We're having a great conversation here. Erika, I love what you say, because as you said, justice should not be for sale. Justice should not be just for the rich. We cannot continue to use these tactics. And I believe having the right judges in front will basically change the game so that it's more of a level playing field. And disproportionately, and again, this is the independent Black voters, it's not right for anybody, but disproportionately Black, brown, poor, these games are used to falsely or to basically force false convictions, and where people have really what I call gray areas, or really a good chance that they should not be convicted. And like you said, if they were able to be at home and make money and do certain things, 90 days out and knowing I'm getting out now by just saying I did it is a big difference at the end. And when you look at it, especially Black men, when that happens, it destroys your life. It destroys your life, because if you had a job, you lost it. If you did, your record gets put on. It gets put on your record. So now your ability to get a job, any type of a realistic job, has put you at risk. So I'm glad to hear you talk about this. It's funny. I'll give you an example of where I say the scales of justice, there's a finger on it. And unfortunately, that finger is not right. If we call ourselves the greatest country in the world and we talk about having this justice system that's fair, it's not. You weren't involved. One of the people that I've endorsed, and oh, by the way, Erika, congratulations, you have just been endorsed by the Independent Black Voters Group.
Thank you.
You exhibit the qualities that we would like to see on the bench. We need people who are fair, who understand what's going on. But what I said, Ozzy Fumu, who is another person who's been endorsed, it's amazing. We talked about the OJ. Whether you like him, whether you don't like him, whether you think he did it in LA, should have been irrelevant here in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. Right.
But when you look at what happened, the scales of justice, somebody put the finger on it. You know, even had he been convicted for doing what he did here, sentencing wise,
he shouldn't have gotten that much time.
He should have never gotten that much time. And
absolutely not.
It should not be whether I like you or I dislike you. It should not be whether I think you got off the first time and I'm giving you more time, or it shouldn't be that the public wants you to punish somebody. They should all be irrelevant if we truly have a scales of justice that are colorblind and that follow the same rules for everybody else. So would you agree?
So you said colorblind a couple times, and I'm going to nitpick with you on that one, because I don't necessarily know that I want the system to be colorblind, because I like being a Black woman. I like, the experiences that I've had. I want the system to value my experience just as much as it values somebody else. And I don't think colorblind is the way to go, because then that gives people an excuse to say, oh, well, I'm colorblind. I don't see color. I see, blah, blah, blah. And I think that gives people who don't have the right motives an out. And so I would prefer to colorblind, I would prefer equity. Like, I would prefer, you can see who I am. You can see what experiences I've got, and respect them and give me equitable time, equitable treatment. So I'm going to nitpick with you on that a little bit. So sorry about that.
And I agree with you as a statement that you use colorblind. I use it in the sense of, if a Black man with tattoos and baggy pants walks in there, he should be looked at as the same thing as a white man with a tie and a suit walking in. Right. When I talk about colorblind, I mean, when you walk into this thing, I'm not going to take the biases of your color into effect when I am judging you. So I agree with your statement.
I know what you mean, and I know what a lot of us mean when we say that word, but I know how it's been
twisted.
Bent and twisted in a different manner than how we mean it. So I've stopped saying it because I don't want people to use it as an out.
I got you. And like, as I said, I agree with you, because I look at the same way. When I hear people say, I don't see color, yes, you do. It's your out to not do anything. Because it's funny, I was listening to music, and the guy had on his shirt, silence is violence. Literally, the people who say I don't see color are really advocating or supporting the violence that the people who see color in a negative light. Because I agree with you. I love the rainbow, and I love the colors of the rainbow, just as I love people's differences. And so I agree with you in that statement. When I talked about it, I just believe I was stating in the fact of leave your biases at the table, because we all have biases. If you're a judge, don't look at past history. Don't look at what you think that person is. Treat them like the same you would treat anybody else. So equal justice is better. I agree with you 100%.
Right. Equity. Right.
Yeah.
But that also goes back into, silence is violence, and the fact that my friend had to tell me she's willing to come and be my shield from the 4 cop cars that came out of nowhere because I'm pulled over and I'm Black.
Absolutely. And that's why, and I say this, and I'm saying this to the Black community, we should vote. We need to have more folks who look like us, and I'm going to say that, who understand the life experiences, but we also need to vet the ones who don't look like us, because we need to have them on our team. We have to create a team that will speak up. Many of the people that will be endorsed by the independent Black voters do not look like me. I clearly reached out to every candidate there, Black, white, purple, green. Some of them responded, some of them didn't. I talked to them about the issues in the Black community, because, as you said, silence is violence, but also when we don't have somebody else on our team, we don't have a team. And we need to have, we as Black folks have to realize we're going to be underrepresented. We have to bring people in who at least understand, have empathy, and will be on our team to come and be a shield until we don't need to have a shield, if that day ever comes. Yep. So we're about to wrap this up, but as I said, I relate to everything that you talk about there. Even when I listen to the issue with the police, I live in Henderson, and like I said, when my sons were teenagers, they had no problems whatsoever, no records, but they kissed the street more than you'd ever believe, just for driving around while Black, just because there were 2 or 3 Black teenagers. It's not right. And if we don't have people like you in these positions that will enforce that it's not right, we're doomed. So we support you, Erika. I'm going to give you the last couple of minutes to, again, give everybody your contact information and give them your final spiel why you should be their candidate of choice.
Well, I'm actually going to use it to explain that there are a whole lot of public defenders and criminal defense attorneys who are running for judge, not just for district court, but we've got some running for family court. We've got some running for justice court. And we as a group, because I never intended to run for judge until Trujillo, told me, we complain about the judges all the time. We need to do something about it. And I was like, Mo, you're right. We do. And so I want to say there are like 10 or 11 of us running for district court, family court, justice court. So we've got quite a number of people. We've got Carly Kearney running for district court department 2. We've got Beta Kamsi is running for District Court Department 1. We've got Monica Trujillo running for District Court Department 3. We've got, I'm trying to think of these off the top of my head. Jasmine Spells is running for Department 23. Fakisha Miller is running for Department 19. David Lopez Negretti doesn't have a primary. I believe that's District Court Department 29. Christy Craig doesn't have a primary, but she, like I said, was integral to some of the bail reform issues that are going on. She's going to be on the November ballot. She's running, I think it's Department 32. Tegan Macknick is running in District Court Department 15. Deidre Butler is running for Family Court. I don't remember those because they have letters. Kevin Speed is running for Family Court. Belinda Harris is running for North Las Vegas Justice Court. These are all people who are going to need your support. And so I urge everybody to look into all those names that I mentioned. I hope I didn't forget anybody. Like I said, I was trying to think of them off the top of my head. So I hope that people look into everyone and really look at who's running. Please vote for people who are trying to help.
Absolutely. Absolutely, folks. As I said, we thank you again as the Independent Black Voters on Facebook. I've said this and I'll continue to say, we need to be educated voters. We need to vote like our lives depend on it. Because if our lives don't, somebody we know does.
Right.
Voting is our power.
Mm-hmm.
Not voting is our kryptonite. I encourage everybody to vote. I encourage them to be educated voters. I encourage to have a requirement. I'm a social justice fighter. I believe that social justice will only come when we start to put the right judges, the right district attorneys, the right police chiefs in. And that only happens when we understand the power of voting. You have anything, Jason, you want to end us with?
No, I'm so happy that I was able to get in and listen a little bit, Erika. I'm so happy that we're endorsing you, and look forward to see you get on that bench.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to end this recording now.